With Capella University's FlexPath learning format, you can earn your degree online at your own pace and get support from people who care about your success. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
With the Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card, you can earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases you want and purchases you need. That means you earn 2% cash rewards on what you want, like season tickets to watch your favorite team, and 2% cash rewards on what you need, like paying for parking. That's the beauty of the Active Cash Credit Card. It's ready when you are, with unlimited 2% cash rewards. The Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card. That's real life ready. Terms apply. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/activecash.
Wylie McGraw, very interesting guy. He was a soldier for many years. He went to Afghanistan. He went to Iraq. He's been in bloody military engagements. And he's also a kind of a unique kind of performance coach where he really tries to be disruptive in a way that many coaches are afraid to be in order to help his clients improve and upscale their lives. And so we talk about both things. First, I always want to know this, and I've spoken about this with Jocko Willink as well. Like, are any wars ever justified? So we kind of talk first about his military experience, and I ask that question, and we have a conversation about it. And then we talk more specifically about what he does and how he's built. I don't want to call him a coach. He doesn't call himself a coach, but basically he's become a high-performance expert for CEOs, celebrities, athletes, and so on. And I'm always curious about that business and industry and also how I could perform at a peak level, which I feel I don't often do. And I'm trying to get better, or at least figure it out a little bit more. So here's Wylie McGraw, and it's a really engaging conversation on a bunch of different levels.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
Well, it's interesting. We can see Mars, right? We can see billions of light years away, but for some reason, our Wi-Fi is always a problem. That's what's
that is funny. Like, why can't like basic things be done, but like it's seemingly impossible things can be done, but not like they just can't get the internet to work.
Right. You wish you could figure out how to problem solve the most basic necessities that we're, when we depend on technology. It's like, okay, blows my mind.
Like, I could ask AI, make a video generated by AI of Wiley and James talking, and it'll make a better video than the video you and I are making right now.
Yeah, I know. It blows my mind.
But it won't be able to send it to us because our Wi-Fi is down.
You got to love it. 2024, this is what we're still dealing with.
Yeah. Well, we're also dealing with a lot of wars around the world. So,
true.
So your upcoming book is, and I want to talk about all the high performance stuff because this is near and dear to my heart. But why is your next book called War is My Vacation?
War was my vacation. It's a memoir I think people have been wanting me to write for like 10 years now. And it's really about the stories that I've shared. Again, I don't have, I'm not an anomaly when it comes to the military community, but my own unique experiences. I think a lot of veterans can relate to it, where home life seemed more like a combat zone than the actual combat zones that we fought in. So there's a lot of the stories there of, I grew up in a very upper middle class family, very organized family, but at the same time, sports. I had everything I needed. However, the dynamics in between human beings were a little bit more dysfunctional and chaotic. So it's like high functioning, dysfunctional relationships, and having to deal with and navigate through the fact that I was always the black sheep or the scapegoat of the family, and having to really break through and understand why everybody dumped the darkness that they carried on me, no matter where I was at. Really helped me understand.
What do you mean? Like what darkness?
It just people carry a lot of their own demons. You know what I mean? So it's when they carry their own personal demons, they need outlets. They look and seek for outlets to let go of it or release it. They don't realize half the time that they're doing that. A lot of times people misuse relationships. for the healing that they're looking for. They find themselves in relationships that are matching the dysfunction that they're used to or that they've grown up around. It was always the place for people to give secrets and tell their truth and share with me what they were going through, even at a young age. But I didn't understand that. So I think War Was My Vacation really was just about highlighting how military and combat were more of a vacation in comparison to what I had to deal with from relationship dynamics and family life, and how that can relate to other veterans that actually serve the military and escape a lot of their dysfunctional and abusive families growing up to heal and find purpose in the world. So that's what that book is really all about.
Where'd you grow up?
Southern California, Orange County.
Okay, and then where did you serve? What? Can you talk about your war experience?
Yeah, I was with I was a light infantryman, so I specialized in mortar gun systems. I was with the 101st Airborne Division. Specifically, I served with the Rakkasans, which is the 187 Infantry Regiment. It's what they call them, the Rakkasans. The Japanese saw the paratroopers jumping into Korea, and they gave them a term, the falling umbrella. And that's what Rakkasan stands for. So that's what they considered the Airborne Regimental Combat Team with the 187 Infantry Regiment, who did a lot of operational stuff with the Ranger Regiment, special operations from Vietnam, Korea, Desert Storm, all the way through the global war on terrorism. So I did that 5.5 years with them, 3 tours overseas. I went to Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
Wow. Can you talk about clearly it wasn't a total vacation. Was there an intense experience that happened that was maybe darker than some of the relationship stuff?
Yeah, war is intense. It is dark. I think I love the contrast really of like how I enjoyed my time overseas, being with my brothers and being able to go on really these high stakes operations, being part of something greater, serving my country. And now I understand the political side of things. A lot of people are like, well, there were a lot of lies that were going on in the wars you participated in. And yes, of course, that's always been there throughout history since World War II. But I think in combat, especially with Kosovo, I got my first taste of interacting with an armed enemy. At 20 years old, I was an E3, went on a covert reconnaissance mission, got involved with capturing some high-value targets out there that were dealing with the genocide or ethnic cleansing that was happening. Faced an AK-47 for the first time, got close to my very first gunfight, got shot at for the first time. Going to Afghanistan was when I really got into some real combat situations against the Taliban in the mountains of Afghanistan, where we were engaged with small arms fire, hot LZs were coming into land, our birds, so they can drop us off. We were getting being engaged by the enemy. But having friends, getting hit in their body armor next to me during those gunfights was surreal. I didn't kill them, but I have lost friends in those situations. Or being involved as a mortarman, sending rounds down range to protect my guys that were, with troops in contact, killing the enemy so that we can save their lives was a surreal moment as well. Just experiencing the overall eeriness that comes along with actually doing the job you had trained for, that you expected to do. When you're actually in the real game, it's a completely different world. So it really puts you in a position to understand your mortality a little bit differently and really understand your capacity and your potential, and know what it takes to be calm in chaos and know how to execute upon the tasks you have been repetitive with in your training for so many years, and realizing you're there to do the job. And one of the biggest sayings for us was, I'm going to let them die for their country, and I'm going to let them go home in a body bag. And the mindset of that is like, I want to make it home, and I want to make sure that I do my job right. Doesn't mean I'm not guaranteed to, but I'm going to make sure I'm 100% focused upon the mission at hand. And I'm going to take care of the brothers to the left and right of me. And then if I make it home, great. If I don't, then I've done my best to serve my country, and I've died underneath my flag for a cause. So I guess war in itself is heinous. So it's the best way to describe it.
How come you signed up for the military?
Well, I have a legacy military family, so every man in my family has served since World War II. My grandparents, both my grandfathers were D-Day vets. My uncles were special forces in Vietnam. My dad was a corpsman in Vietnam. My stepdad was a Desert Storm vet. So everybody, we just had this connection to service, selfless service for our nation. That was there, but part of it was, I know like you like to talk about those moments of adversity in our life where we choose our own path. And the military came really knocking when I was in high school, when I was basically in competitive bull riding while I'm still playing competitive baseball. And my dad was not happy with the idea that I wasn't 100% focused on baseball. He was pretty pissed off at me. He was like, you know what? If you're going to do that bull riding crap, you might as well just get out of here and go do something else. And I thought, you know what? Good point. So we did a junior Marine Corps program, my brother and I, when we were in high school, and we loved it. And I decided at 17 years old, I was going to join the Army Reserves to get some experience before I graduated. But when I graduated, I wanted to go be in the infantry and go jump out of airplanes, go to Ranger School and do those really fun, high speed things. And that's where we decided to go. So that it became a stepping stone for me to really evolve as a man and really understand more of myself and get into the positions to be around other high performing individuals who are all focused on bettering themselves and doing really cool, fun things. But at the same time, it's always just ingrained in me to be a selfless service. I've always wanted to be a firefighter as a kid. I always was just giving away, taking care of people, donating, volunteering, et cetera, at a young age. And it just never left me. So that's why I joined.
So you mentioned earlier that, of course, there's a lot of, lies. And I'm sure when you're on the battlefield, you can't think about the politics. Like there's no room for that. But
right.
When you come home and like now you see, and this won't be, I'm just curious, this won't be like a political podcast or anything, but when you see like, oh my gosh, the Taliban, who I fought and who we fought for like 20 years, is now in charge of Afghanistan. Like, how does it make you feel?
Sad, upset. I think there was a lot of emotion when that pullout happened. A lot of conversations I had with brothers of mine that were still in the military now, guys I served with, that I have lost friends for that war. So I think it was a gut punch in a way that I never expected. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, where we realize we felt betrayed. What was the point of us doing all of that? Why did we stay there as long as we did? Why did we sacrifice as much as we did when we were promised that the whole point was to go after a very specific target for a very specific reason, and they were going to get in and get out. And the next thing you know, you're hearing murmurs about nation building and freedom and things like that. And you're kind of going, yeah, but you're diluting the cause and the purpose of why you sent us here in the first place. And I think it just really became this emotional state of anger, frustration, rage, sadness, and betrayal. We felt very betrayed. Like, yeah, they're in charge. 20 years later, they got all our weapon systems. Now they're in charge of the very thing we were looking to liberate. And buddies of mine that I've met that are from Afghanistan and said the same thing. They're like, I feel sad too, because you guys came in and we're doing a lot of good for us, a lot of our towns and things like that. But at the same time, there was a lot of that political agenda that was behind it that we were unaware of that just failed. And I think it stems from the leadership really not putting their ducks in a row and understanding what they're really doing, and these ulterior motives that are sinister and very asymmetrical. And I think that's a big problem to it too. So it just broke our hearts. It was really bad.
And this is not like party related, because if you think about it, like Afghanistan and Iraq was, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, like it's Democrat and Republican.
Right.
And like, why didn't anybody wake up and say, hey, let's get realistic here? And, Iraq now is run by Iran. Afghanistan is run by the Taliban. We spent trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to go out there and like march in the streets, but when you think about it, what a cluster, whatever this was.
Yeah. Yeah, James, it is. And that, I think there were a lot of veterans, a lot of guys in the military that were trying to combat the degradation of leadership and the decision-making that was happening at the higher levels. But again, when you have a war machine that's bent around the will of politicians and these ulterior motives, again, it's a business too. We got to be realistic around it as well. A lot of these contractors and these private entities that are involved in this, trillions of dollars go into the pocket of people to make the weapons that we go off and use to go fight wars. It doesn't mean that there aren't good causes there, but it does water down why we're doing what we're doing and the purpose behind serving our country. And it really starts to leave a bad taste in their mouth. And I think there were a lot of people that are trying to fight that, but they're overwhelmed by the other side, so to speak, not being political either, but the other side of people's ambitions and desires and what they want and what they see as best, and the relationships they've forged in the shadows kind of overpowers those that are truly trying to get people back on track. So people tried. I think it's going to take a more of a radical shift in approach to get things back on course, or at least somewhat revive what we are. Otherwise, we're gonna be in a bad place, as we are experiencing right now.
A bad place in the sense that other countries won't trust us, or they won't want to do business with us?
Yeah, brother. I think it's the fact that we're losing credibility on the world stage with our allies. We're betraying people that trusted us, like the people that served with us in Afghanistan and even Iraq. We've caused chaos in different regions that threw the whole region into an unstable boiling pot, like Iraq specifically. It's also the trust in the military itself, trust in the people that serve in the military. The veteran community is not trusting the military. We have legacy families that are telling people to not serve, to avoid military service at all costs. So all you're doing is you're leaving the vacuum for bad actors to serve in the military who have their own agendas, their ideologies, their approaches to the way they want things to operate, and that further erodes the entirety of the system itself, and it pulls away from the reason why we have a functioning, well-functioning military and a free country that we have built for the last 269 years.
Yes, it's totally true. Airbnb has changed my life. If anything, they have made my life so much better. Like, I used to live in Airbnbs. I lived in over 100 or 200 different Airbnbs over a 3-year period, and I loved it. I became a really good guest of Airbnbs, and I got to know lots of hosts. So when I initially owned a house, of course, the first thing I thought was, I'm going to turn my house into an Airbnb because I travel a lot. So why leave my house unused when I could make a side income by letting others Airbnb my house or come to stay in my house as guests? And having my own Airbnb or being a host for Airbnb has allowed me to do just that. And I've met other hosts. I've actually spoken at Airbnb's host conference. I think it was in 2017. I met so many just nice hosts. It's a great community. And I love, turning my own home into an Airbnb. Like, I'm traveling to Austin next month. My home's going to be an Airbnb while I'm away, and I'll stay in an Airbnb. I'd rather stay in like a 3-story house Airbnb than in one tiny hotel room in the middle of Austin during South by Southwest. So listen, while you're away, your home could be an Airbnb. Many people host on Airbnb, but there are people who are just letting their house sit empty, who've never thought about it or didn't realize their space could be an Airbnb. Hosting can easily fit into your lifestyle and is a great way to earn some extra money. So if you have a home, but you're not always at home, then you have an Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. Daylight savings time is starting up again. Okay, podcast is over. That's all you needed to know. But why do we have daylight savings time? Answer: to give us more daylight from March through November. By setting your clocks forward, it may feel like there are more hours in the day when we initially start daylight savings. But if you're hiring, it doesn't necessarily help you find qualified candidates for your roles any sooner. There's only one way to do that: ZipRecruiter. And right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/James. ZipRecruiter works around the clock to find qualified candidates for you. Once you post your job on ZipRecruiter, they send it to 100 plus job sites so you reach more of the right people. This is such a brilliant idea for a business, and ZipRecruiter did it. So ZipRecruiter's smart technology also quickly scans thousands of resumes to identify people whose skills and experience match your job. I've used ZipRecruiter particularly as a potential employee, and I still to this day get messages every day. James Altucher, would you like to apply to be VP of Entertainment at NBC or whatever? So there's just nonstop emails. Like, I got 5 or 6 emails today because a year ago I signed up for ZipRecruiter. So spring forward with a new hiring partner, ZipRecruiter, and find top talent sooner. See why 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Just go to this exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free. ZipRecruiter.com/James. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/James. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. What was the last war or major military action do you think we were involved in where A, it was justified, and B, we did a good job? I'm not saying you did a bad job.
No, I get it.
But as a country, like, you did a good job, but as a country,
yeah,
like, you're right. Like, I've had a little glimpse into kind of the whole military, how much it costs $30,000 a day to suit up a soldier in Afghanistan. And
yeah,
that's a lot of soldiers in a lot of days. I mean, it adds up to enormous amount of money that goes into the pockets of the executives and shareholders of the major military companies. They make an enormous amount of money, and then
Right.
it's all just wasted. 20 years. So, okay, my question though is like, what's the last war where, yeah, that was a good war. That was a righteous war.
I I'm gonna skew myself towards World War II a little bit. I think that's were there ulterior motives there, of course. However, I think there was a deeper purpose behind the motivations for the United States to get involved in that conflict, and the fact that we could see on a bigger scale, more transparently speaking, that we were actually affecting change and we were liberating, countries over in Europe, and we were fighting evil together that did not need to exist. And that's the job of the military. Is we join the military truly, especially to get into combat arms, is because we are good guys with bad intentions to go over and stop bad guys with bad intentions from being able to exist on the planet and cause more havoc and hell that actually destroys humanity. So I think World War II was a very significant inflection point where we realize we are doing this for the patriotic nature of what freedom and liberty stands for, not necessarily democracy or anything else, but just what liberty itself specifically means, and giving people that liberation that they long for, that they deserve, when we have a tyrant that's trying to do some really heinous stuff, despite what their motives really are, whether you agree with them or not. I think from there, we started to lose traction, and we started to almost overutilize our military industrial complex as our only chip for foreign policy. When we start leaning in and saying our military might is all we need, you start to really create fractures in foreign policy, and you start to destroy the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. And the wars would just become an element of ambition rather than a purpose of securing democracy, freedom, liberty, republic, et cetera, that we all say that we want for the world. So I think that the World War II was Vietnam was a mess. Korea was a mess. Desert Storm was interesting. But then when we went to Afghanistan and Iraq, especially in Iraq, we realized there was the lies that were told. We kind of were all aware of it when we got there. So we kind of look back chronologically and go, what happened to us from World War II to this point? What did we do wrong, or how did we miss out? Where did our leadership fail? And that's what we're trying to figure out right now and get back to.
Well, do you think Eisenhower's warning of a military industrial, he was the first one to use the term, a military industrial complex. Right. Do you think we ignored him? Like, and he couldn't shut it down. It was already a machine that was moving forward.
The best I can say is without, because again, I'm not an expert on those types of foreign, policies as myself, but from the outside in, or at least from serving as well, and having conversations with people in politics, I think for the majority of it, yes, I think we've ignored. We hear it and we go, you know what, James, we hear, we go, that's such a great concept. But a lot of the times people are so distracted by more ambitions and more, opportunities that they have and the money, et cetera, that goes involved inside the military itself, that they actually forget the deeper meaning of what Eisenhower had said, why he said what he said, where is it coming from, and what was the purpose of even sharing those thoughts. He didn't just say it just because he wanted to sound cool and have some meme down the road. There was a purpose behind his prophecy and letting us know, hey, there's a reason why we should be careful on how we utilize the war machine itself and our military. Our military is here to protect our nation. It's to showcase the fact that we are strong, we are self-sufficient, and we are here to support other nations, our allies, that need help when they need help. It's not to be used as a tool to go enforce our agendas on other populations when our foreign policy or diplomacy has failed, or we can't figure out how to actually negotiate properly. And I think a lot of leaders have failed in that department. So they go, you know what, I've got the military. I can just lean on the might of our United States military, and I can use it at my whim to persuade my foreign policy. And that's, I think, where we've lost our way when it comes to what Eisenhower said up to this point.
Yeah. And then, I even wonder, and I know this is almost like sacrilegious to say, but I even wonder about World War II. Like, we entered the war later than every other country. Like, initially, we were isolationists, and Roosevelt didn't want to go to war and kind of used Pearl Harbor as an excuse to go to war. And then by the time we got to, like, let's say Auschwitz, we didn't get to Auschwitz. Actually, it was the Russians. It was the Soviet Union that liberated it. And even in Japan, okay, there was the whole news story that, hey, if we invade Japan, we're going to lose 1 million more soldiers. So that's why we have to drop the atomic bomb. But Russia, again, was already invading Japan. Like, they were on the edge of Japan about to invade, and Japan had really no army left. And so it's even questionable, like, what we accomplished, in all deference to your, grandparents who served in
Sure.
World War II, of course, because like I think that was a noble thing, and it was scary and it was brave, and they were fighting for something, but we got in almost like. Do you think we really? I mean, I'm sure we helped, but we were sort of just mopping up at the end there.
Yeah. There's an effect, right? You always bring in reinforcement. So there's going to be an effect, especially with what we contributed. The idea that I think many Americans think that we single-handedly were the victory holders of World War II. When we showed up, everything was won, but they realized that we supported and uplifted our allies and the things that they were already doing in that conflict. And we really added in an extra punch to the overall purpose behind the war itself. But the reality is we lost a lot of people. We had a lot of problems. And I don't know. It's just, I question it too. I think every war, you and I have a mutual friend in Jeremy, and him and I were talking about it. And it's like, I share with him now more than ever. I think the political ambitions and the ulterior motives of the wealthy are now more exposed than they've ever been, but they've always been there. I think it's since the history of man, we've always had those problems. I don't think there's ever been a pure, or joining the military just to serve for just this one purpose only. There's always been something underneath it that is going to be a part of you. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You can't get one without the other. I think now more than ever, especially with the Ukraine and Israel going on, we're experiencing more prominently the truth about what's behind the curtain, so to speak, like the Wizard of Oz. We're seeing the wizard, and where everybody's going, whoa, I don't want to do anything for that. However, that doesn't change. We are still the United States of America. We still have a duty to our country, and those that feel it pulled to serve, there's a good cause to serve your country and still not like going where you want to, you don't want to go. Sometimes we don't have that choice. Don't hate the warrior. You can hate the war or hate the purpose, but there's that fine line where it's like, I would go back and do it again because I love my country. I love the people in it. I love my family, God, country, family, etc., friends, all of that. I'm serving them. And if I can go at least create some change somewhere in the world, I don't have to agree with the rest of it. I'm going to do my best to uphold to those standards and those values. I'm going to do what's morally right. And if I feel something's wrong, I'm going to question it and fight it. And I think that's what happens. People just go along, unfortunately, and they just do what they're told and nobody pushes back. And that's where we've gotten off the rails, is because more and more people have just sat back and just allowed people to just make decisions, and nobody's questioned it because they're said it's wrong to question orders. It's wrong to question people's ambitions and motives. No, it's not. If you feel it's wrong, you have every right to question it. And the only way we're going to stop or stave off this problem is if we have more people who have the gumption and the willingness, the courage to stand up and go, nope, I will not do X, but I will do Y. And I think that's what we went wrong with World War II, is a lot of people started to allow that to just be, let the leaders make decisions, we're just going to execute. And then these next wars that we experience over the next generations, people were just being told to do stuff and they were just doing it. And then things fell off the rails. Yeah.
I guess Vietnam, even though it took 14 years, the activists probably won, in the sense that, Nixon in 1968 pledged to end the war. He escalated it for a while, but then after his reelection, he basically shut it down, or Ford ultimately shut it down. And so it took a long time, but they got out of it. And then I guess there wasn't really like anything major until Desert Storm.
Right.
Under Bush. And then, of course,
anything major aside from maybe whatever special operations we're doing in the shadows, because we don't know what's going on with them.
We can't forget about Grenada.
Right. Panama, all that, where the Ranger regiments did what they did out there. But yeah, that's, and if you look at history, I think to me, it's crazy, because going to Iraq and looking back at Desert Storm, my stepdad was a Desert Storm vet, 12 Bravo combat engineer, and him and I used to have nights where we converse about our combat experiences. And it's interesting is, why did we go to Iraq? Well, look at the father-son legacy. Okay, well, you don't use your military for legacy. That to me was just one reason. And they're like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I lost friends because he needed to finish something, or we had resources we were curious or interested in, or a control mechanism we were looking to place for power. It's like, okay, this is the problem with leadership. There's a lot of evil in leadership, and people don't realize they are going to compound those problems like interest, and down the road, it's going to really create some serious havoc. And I think that's what we're experiencing now, is the byproducts of 50, 60 years ago, Vietnam, et cetera. We're experiencing it right now. We're starting to feel those decisions weighing on us and causing more problems. And it's just going to trickle down even further until we do something about it.
So it's interesting. I know we've been talking a lot about your military experience, but
Sure.
you mentioned earlier that before going to the military, you're like this high school kid and you were into competitive bull riding and baseball pitching.
Yeah.
And of those three things, military, competitive bull riding, baseball pitching, I probably would have chosen baseball pitching.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Makes a lot of money. You're
Yeah.
playing a game. It's just like, I always think this about sports. Like, it's just a bunch of guys playing with sticks and balls and getting paid $40 million a year, which I don't
Yep.
resent that because these are professional athletes are the most elite athletic people in the world, and
Right.
hundreds of millions of people are entertained by it. So of course you pay the money. Like that's how capitalism works. And
Right.
and they earn every penny of it because the owners of the teams, the owners of the media companies make 10 times as much as the players make. So
Right.
and then that filters down into society, like all our 401k plans and pension funds. So it's the American dream at work. You get to play a game and everybody benefits. But why didn't so tell me about the baseball pitching.
So I grew up I was literally born into a sports household. So the beautiful part of that is my dad was a baseball player growing up, and he played semi-pro ball for the San Jose Bees in the 70s, which is a farm team, and did like
For
7 years.
Who was the farm team for?
I'm trying to remember San Jose, if they were the, I don't remember what team they were. I can't even think of the top of my head right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's confusing because I used to go to a minor league team that had a stadium near our house where I lived, and I had no idea who they were.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just know that, again, he played that semi-pro ball for 7 years, and I know he was an outfielder, so he was I think a center fielder. He had an arm, and he actually was being looked at by the pros. But in the 70s, there was no money in baseball. So the 80s was when things pivoted and money started to trickle in. You started to get the $1 million contracts. My dad also was an endless summer type guy, a big surfer, wanted to do his own thing. So when I was born at a young age, I think it was like 3, eventually he was telling me, we were having a glass of whiskey one day. He said, yeah, 3 years old, you picked up a ball and threw it across the yard. And your grandfather was like, okay, Bruce, he's got an arm like you should do something with that. And I think 4 years old, he put me on my first T-ball team, put me on the mound to just stand there because T-ball, you don't pitch. But when you got old enough to pitch, I started playing that position. And then my dad, being a semi-pro ball player, given family contacts, knew everybody in the professional league, like Rod Carew from the Angels, knew Bo Jackson. So I grew up around. Yeah, that's right.
Jewish player.
Yeah, I went to high school with his daughter, Michelle, rest her soul. But, and so I grew up around those guys, and my dad got me pitching lessons from the Angels in the 80s, like guys like Bert Blyleven and Jim Abbott and Dennis Eckersley. So I met all the really cool dudes. Wally Joyner. I grew up in Anaheim, so the Angels were my go-to team. So baseball was a primary sport that I was focused on. I collected baseball cards as a kid off season. I was always trading them and playing with my Beckett's and having that fun growing up. But it was, again, family dynamics are different from focusing on like, hey, you're going to do this specific job or this specific sport. You got to consider there's a lot more pressure depending on the family dynamics. And my dad expected me, as the oldest of 3 boys, to not only be the leader of my brothers, but also be a leader on my baseball teams. And then, of course, the pressure of I need to perform at the top of my game every year in and year out at a young age kind of starts to make you consider or question, why am I playing this sport? Am I doing this more for me, for my dad, or am I doing it more for me and my love of it? And I love the game. But as I got older and I got into high school specifically is where I really was like, I don't feel good playing this because I feel like when I make mistakes or I'm not doing the best that I could be, there's a lot more consequence to it than just your typical lose a game or, train harder or do better next time. And I didn't like that. So I started to pull away from it more and seek out a different path for myself. It wasn't that I wasn't excited about the opportunity to go play a college sport, because I had scouts that I was going to eventually meet, maybe get to the pros because I was told I had the arm at 80 mile an hour fastball at 13 years old. I had potential. It was just the pressures of family dynamics, the stress that I carried from my family with what I grew up around, the pressures, the personality issues that I had to deal with. There was a lot of that compounding on me. So in high school, I fell in love with the idea of seeking something that was mine, truly mine, nothing that I was told to do or born into, but James, more my stuff. And bull riding was the world that introduced me to this like exciting new place of unknowns, really started to feel the nervousness and excitement, kind of what it did to me, how it made me feel alive. And I pursued that relentlessly against the pressures of my dad telling me, don't do it. I wanted to do it. I felt like I was alive for the first time and I was making a choice for me rather than just doing what I was told to do. And that's where that separation started.
I mean, the one thing about bull riding though is I feel like I could die from that.
Yeah, of course.
Like, did
You
you?
could.
I mean, you probably saw some serious injuries among young people.
I did. I got injured too. It's interesting. And I think this is a good lesson I've shared with people is bull riding taught me how to yield to the fear of the unknowns. And the fear of death and the fear of injury are always going to be present when you're doing very vulnerable sports or joining the military or doing something very different and scary. So bull riding gave me permission to learn how to become present with that discomfort and that fear and learning how to utilize it as an asset for my ability to stay focused in the moment and be a good performer, be a good bull rider. And I noticed quickly when I got worried about being hurt or killed, I actually didn't ride really well. And when I changed that dynamic in my training, I was able to perform better and ride more bulls and for the full 8 seconds and actually do better in the sport overall and progress in the sport than it was if I worried about, oh my gosh, I could get killed or I can get hurt. And then sometimes when I got banged up, I realized part of the sport, nature of the beast, no pun intended, just what's going to happen. I've committed to this because that is not what is going to stop me from experiencing what it is that I want to experience in this moment. And same thing with military. I'm going to join the military. I could die. Of course, I'm signing my life away. And I've lost friends that signed their life away too. But we don't go into the worried about dying. We go into the realizing we want to do this job and we want to be good at this job. And when we focused on that, that's what mattered most. And the consequences of our actions, they are what they are.
And so now, many years later, you take all these experiences and you're like a coach for leaders, for business leaders and celebrities and all sorts of people. Can you talk about that a little? Like sometimes I'm skeptical of the concept of the coach. Because I think a lot of people use the term inaccurately. Like they're essentially just trying to make money and they're not really coaching. Like for instance, I've written a lot of, I give advice to people. People come to me who are CEOs and so on and ask for advice and I give advice, but I would not consider myself a coach. I am not putting someone on a regimen that is going to give them high performance. Like I'll write books about it, but I just won't do it. But I think a lot of people who maybe don't even have as much experience as me go in there when their life's a mess and then start coaching other people. Yep. And it gives the whole industry like a bullshit taint to it.
Yes. You hit it on the head, brother. You hit it right on the head. Number one, I'm not a coach. Nothing I do is about routine. Nothing I do is about system. It's not compartmentalization. I think the personal development industry has marketed itself into a place where it is all about making money first and helping people second. As much as the average coach wants to argue, they might hear that and say, you're full of crap, Wiley. I do want to help people. The reality is, are you willing to sacrifice getting paid right now to make sure that the person you're interacting with that you've met actually is ready to do the work you're about to put them through? And most of them will say, no, I'm not going to give my time unless I get paid. And it's right there. My time is just as valuable as your time. So why am I going to charge you for time rather than for the result that I could guarantee get you if you engage in the relationship with me? So that's the first part. So I love that you brought that up because I'm not a coach. I hate that term because everybody is a coach now. Everyone figures out a couple things. They read a few Jocko Willink or David Goggins books and they think, you know what, I've learned a couple concepts. I'm going to go out and start my own business and I'm going to be a coach for business or lifestyle, or I'm going to help people have better this and that in their life. And if you look at their lives, they're nowhere near but more than 2 steps ahead of that person that they're trying to help. And trying to do is they're trying to capitalize on the system itself. And that's just an unfortunate part. So with you, like your people come to you because you don't approach it from a place of trying to show how I'm the expert and I'm going to show you how it's step by step and we're going to do this. You're like, I'm here to give you insights and practical advice based on your life and where you're at that can influence maybe your decisions, your ambitions, your focus, et cetera, and redirect you, even if it's 1 degree. To me, that's like being an advisor or a confidant for someone. In the nature of my work, I don't do that. I'm not for everyone either. I don't care who someone is or what industry they're in. What matters is I just fix lives. I'm a glorified janitor for all intents and purposes. You can call me whatever you want to call me. My clients call me performance accelerator. They call me coach, whatever they want to do. You want to label me, whatever makes you feel comfortable, we'll go for it. But the idea here is I actually will live with and travel with the people I'm working with. I'm by their side 24/7. I'm fighting their personal battles with them in the trenches as it's happening to them. There is no system to how I do it. There's no cookie cutter approach. There's no follow me because I'm just like Tony Robbins and I learned from Tony Robbins how to do XYZ. I don't use these weird techniques like NLP and all these manipulative ideas that people have out there on how to support others. I'm just raw and real. I will say things that people will go, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it doesn't matter. What matters is you can lean into and understand that when I say them, there's a reason why I'm bringing them up. I will rattle souls. I will push people far outside what their perceived comfort zone really is. I will fight them. I will battle them. I will confront them. And I will do things that their therapists think highly are illegal half the times. But I'm willing to do it to fix a human being's life, not because I want to make a bunch of money or I want to help that person make extra money in their business or be a better, influencer on social media. It's because that human being is struggling and suffering, even though they've got this empire and they want peace. They want some satisfaction. They want a set point of what it's like to actually have better relationships. They want to know who they really are without the demons that plague them. I don't think people are doing that. Nobody wants to do that ugly work. And I'm willing to embrace that people are not going to like me. And it's going to take a certain type of person who can go, you know what? I want that guy next to me. I want to talk to him more. I want to lean into him. And in the last piece, James, really is just like I'm sure you probably maybe in some way do it yourself is when I meet someone who might be a potential client, I don't say, okay, great, let's write a check and work together. I'll spend months with that person before we even decide to do work together because I need to make sure that individual can handle the relationship we're going to have together. I'm coming to move in with you. I'm going to be right there with you as life happens. So can you handle it or not? If you can't, then you're not my person. And I'm willing to sacrifice my time and even my resources to make sure that person's the right fit.
Looking for a rewarding, life-changing opportunity that enhances the lives of children in your community? Well, with almost 50 years of experience, Huntington Learning Center is the nation's leading K-12 tutoring and test prep franchise, dedicated to shaping brighter futures for both students and franchisees. Huntington is the top revenue-producing supplemental education franchise in the U.S., and their proven system is the key to success for you and your students. The Huntington Advantage includes low startup cost turnkey systems, dedicated support teams, national and local marketing support, and multiple revenue streams to help you build a life-enriching and profitable business. No education experience needed. In today's environment, the need for tutoring has never been greater. When you become part of Huntington Learning Center, you're filling an urgent need in the growing $5 billion supplemental education industry. To learn more, visit huntingtonfranchise.com. Make a meaningful difference, pursue your dreams of business ownership, and be a positive force in your community. Don't wait. Visit huntingtonfranchise.com today. Hey, listen, men's health is important. Men act all cocky and like they don't need anything. But the reality is, as you get older, there's some things you need. And it often feels like we're too busy to take care of our health problems. Like, I'd rather do anything than go to the doctor or the dentist or the pharmacy or whatever. But now you don't have to waste your time if you use HIMS. HIMS, H-I-M-S, HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing simple and convenient access to science-backed treatments for erectile dysfunction, hair loss, weight loss, and more. The entire process is 100% online, so you get a new routine of improving your overall health faster. Jay, you listening to all this?
Yes, I definitely gonna use him from now
Not
on.
that you need it. You're young and healthy.
James, I'm 35.
You're getting there. You might need it. Who knows? But if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you for free and in discreet packaging. No insurance is needed. You can manage your plan on the HIMS app, track progress, and learn more about your conditions and how to treat them from leading medical experts. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/James. Could you imagine that? There's a whole section just with my name on it. Hims.com/James. That's how much I am representative of the kind of person who needs Hims. That's HIMS.com/James for your personalized treatment options. Hims.com/James. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See hims.com/James for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. So, like, what's an example where, like, you mentioned, you're 24/7, you're traveling with them.
Yep.
Like, how did you get into this? Like, who is someone who is? I mean, you don't have to give specific names if you don't want, but who is someone who's approached you, and then what did you do, and like, what happened?
Nobody approaches me. Nobody goes, oh, Wiley, I got to go approach him in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
Everybody I've ever worked with, it started with combat veterans. I started my business working with vets, dealing with PTSD, giving them the space to battle their personal demons from war, personal life, et cetera. And it evolved where they were saying, hey, I got a friend who works in this industry or who does this. Will you sit down and have a conversation with them? They see how my life has transformed. They want to know what I'm doing. And I can't explain it other than the fact that you're like my battle buddy who's loving me and reparenting me and healing me and getting me to a place of feeling optimal personally so that no matter what I do, everything is in a good state. I said, sure. And that's where it became, the business was built around just this natural eruptive nature that I have, my essence, my spirit that rattles and irritates people, exposes in that interaction with them the real truth that they're carrying. So I'm trying to explain that to you that when I meet someone, it's because third party introduction. Someone introduces me to someone. Nobody's going to see me on your show and go, I got to call Wiley right now and work with them. It just doesn't happen that way. It's all about relationships I've made where people like, I want to introduce you to someone. I want you to sit down with them. Then we meet. A lot of the times I've been to events in the past where I've walked across a hotel room or hotel lobby at an event and someone walks up to me and goes, who the hell do you think you are? Excuse me? They're like, who are you? I watch you. I don't like you. It's like, okay, I don't even know you. They're like, I don't know why I said that to you, man. You just remind me of my father and how much my father pissed me off. You dress like him. You carry yourself like him. And it's like, that's the eruption that happens. I go, great, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and chat. And that person is somebody that I will end up spending time with. But it's truly completely abnormal. I don't do business like everybody else does. That's why I'm kind of like an acquired taste. So I hope that helps maybe explain that a little bit more for you.
Yeah. So give me like a specific story, like somebody that you really, did the work with.
Man, that's that's going to be a specific story that I did work with. I've worked with public figures in the personal development space. I've worked with CEOs, financial executives, Wall Street guys. Everybody has their own unique experience of life that is completely different. Their eruptions are completely different with me. So the best example I can give you is I had a public figure that I worked with in the personal development info marketing space.
Like how public? How public was he?
Pretty darn public. Knows everybody. Let's just call it. Friends with everyone. I mean, he's worked with people like Paula Abdul, Tony Robbins, like all of them. So I met him through a PR contact. A mutual friend said, "Hey, I have a friend of mine in this space. He is in a place where nothing is working for him. He has done this for 30 some years. He's burned out. He's at his wit's end, and he needs his life fixed. Are you willing to have a conversation with him?" And of course, so I spent upwards of 8 months with this gentleman prior to us ever working together because I had to go through the ups and downs of his life and the betrayals and the lack of trust and the skepticism and all of the components that come along in his industry that he's so used to because everybody bullshits each other in that industry. Everybody's stroking each other's ego. Everybody lies to each other. Everybody sells each other, markets each other. There's a lot of betrayal, a lot of fraud, a lot of things that happen there that he was carrying in his life that were affecting his performance and affecting his life with his wife and his child. And that relationship was tumultuous, just getting him to realize, I'm not here for your money. I'm not here because of your name. I'm not here for my business sake. And I showcased that just in my commitment to that relationship for 8 months before he realized, you know what? Clearly you were sent for a reason. I'm here and I'm ready to do the work with you. And he committed to doing that work. And we spent a year together basically uneffing his entire life to get him to a place where he's now living free and unencumbered from all of the chaos he's endured his entire life from childhood on, so he can experience that fulfillment in what he's putting his focus on. So again, I can't explain it because I'm not a coach. I can't go, X public figure came to me for X problem, and here's the solution I gave him, and this is his result. That's too compartmentalized. It's very intimate. It's very dynamic and different, and it's very confidential. But at the end of the day, he's like, I have no idea. I even talk about him on my website in my client section. I have no idea where he came from or why, but all I knew is that this was the life overhaul that I needed. And I said, I'm happy to have helped. And then he'll text me every few months just to check in and say, hey man, everything's great. Hope you're well. And that's the end of it.
And like, what kind of, so like you spent 8 months kind of figuring him out. I assume you didn't spend 24/7 with him during these 8 months.
No,
you're just like kind of hanging out and talking and learning, maybe weekly meetings.
Go to dinner once in a while, have phone calls a couple times a week, text each other. Just let him know I'm right there by his side.
And then once you decided to work together, what was the first thing? What happened?
I'm trying to figure out a way to explain it to you. It's almost like we were already involved in a relationship together. So we just kept going. It was almost like, here's where you just handle the logistics of you write your check to commit to the relationship, and we just continue on. So I just ended up, I was traveling with him at that time. So I was with him at some of the masterminds he was going to and some of his events he had to go speak at, and just being there with him behind the stages, by his side in his hotel rooms. And it just naturally is a relationship. It's kind of like having a battle buddy by your side is constantly redirecting your focus, showcasing your blind spots, telling you where and how and why it's affecting you, how to shift it. Just having that with him as those experiences are happening really helped create a new set point within him. Rather than being from an outside in, I was working from the inside out.
So like, let's say, so you're with him and he has a meeting. Okay. A meeting maybe with some peers or some colleagues or some people who claim they want to help him have wider distribution and get him famous and whatever. So you're in this meeting, and then he leaves the meeting with you and he says, man, that one guy was an asshole. Like, do then you like start poking at that? Or like, I'm just trying to figure out like where did you have him like question kind of where some of this anger or other issues he was having comes in? Or
yeah, we do. I mean, every time I'm involved in a meeting like something like that, I'm already observing and paying attention to how the dynamics are playing out in the meeting. See, most people go into these types of environments focused on more of the negotiation or the interaction. They don't understand the nuanced nature of the dynamics playing out in the games that a lot of people play. So I'm able to just identify that, well, what's going on there. And so if he comes out and goes, man, that guy's an asshole, I already understand why he might be having that experience of that feeling, because I understand what that guy's doing, and I can poke at or talk to him about why that guy is acting that way, what his response or his actions are for that relationship, how that is actually that relationship between those two are affecting the overall outcomes or solutions or performance that these guys are involved in, and help him redirect where maybe he needs to go confront that guy. Maybe he's allowed that relationship to sour for a very long time because he doesn't want to rock the boat, or he doesn't want to lose the contact. But at the end of the day, if you don't confront things like that, you're never going to get to the truth, and you're going to allow things to fester. And that's going to actually overall affect the dynamic that you're partaking in. It's going to affect the outcomes that you're looking for, and it's going to influence your performance. It's going to be a problem with how you show up, and people are going to take advantage of that. So it all depends on the individual and the experience. So I can't highlight that's how it happens every time, but I'm right there to showcase where that blind spot may be coming from, so I can either direct that person to go engage with that relationship, or just let it go. Or might just be something we need to work on with him, where why is he feeling so triggered, if you will, for that experience? What is really going on? Let's confront what is making you feel that way. But a lot of the times people don't see those specific nuanced details, because they don't know how to coach someone through that. They just go, okay, well, so what? He's an asshole. It's business. Nature of the beast. Keep moving forward. And the reality is, if you don't confront those things and get to the truth, maybe there's a problem there, or maybe there isn't. And that's the difference, is I'm willing to confront that and go all the way to the very edge, and then some, even if it makes people mad, because I want to make sure we've got it all cleared out so we can get you to a better place.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, so I understand, like, because I think it does sound very real. And so I want to see, like, what's a specific story, like, without the names, where, or even like just one day in the life of where this was a situation you and the person you're helping were at kind of like, he had some blind spot and you kind of like work through it with him.
So I always end up not on any volition of my own. I always end up becoming, again, this is like unique. This is like I'm a weirdo. My gift, I always end up becoming the thing that actually has broken or pissed off that person the most. So whatever they need to fight against, I end up serving as for some reason in that dynamic. So they can push up against it and they can create some real healing in their lives around it because everybody has something like that in their lives. So
okay, so that right there, like tell me a specific time when you just like
I've had a knockdown fight with a client. I've had to literally get physical, and I allowed the client to get physical with me.
Okay,
So
what
at the end
happened?
of the day,
like how did he? Why was a punch thrown? Like what happened?
I needed him to and the problem is his ego was so locked in on how he thought he should be and could be doing things that I couldn't get through him in our conversation. I'm at his house and I'm like, his ego, his nonchalant attitude, I'm a former Wall Street guy, I got it all figured out. None, just all of this. And I literally could not sit there and listen to the dysfunction coming out of his mouth anymore. And he was like, I'm good. He kept saying, I'm good. He kept with ego. Was like, I don't need any of this.
Why was he saying that? Like, what were you saying? And I know I'm pressing here, like to get the actual specifics.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to uphold to the confidentiality as well that I promise the people that I work with. So he had his head in the sand okay, I'll give you the surface level of it. He had his head in the sand about a side business he built, multi-million-dollar side business he built, that his mother and stepdad were basically driving into the ground. They were letting it bleed. It was costing him $200,000 a month. Bleeding that kind of money. So he's in the red. And he was almost like, it's the dog with the coffee in the fire. This is fine. It was that meme, I'm sure you've seen that. It was like, everything's fine. And he was avoiding the fact that relationship between his mother and his stepdad with that company was directly influencing his lack of ability to actually grow his other business over here in his financial advising business he had built. And it was causing him to suffer in his personal relationships with the women he was dating, couldn't figure out how to get his kids to actually respect him the right way. So he had his unruly household. And he was like, no, I can just fix this by focusing on this. And he was like, I'm good. I don't need to worry about this business. And I said, this business is bleeding you as a human being dry. And that is influencing all of this over here. This is the thing we have to attack. And he kept fighting me and telling me, I'm not going after that. I refuse to do it. And I told him, you need to stop acting cool and like shit is okay. And you need to start getting real and start being a real man here and start being real with me, or I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave. And he goes, no, I don't want you to leave. I said, then you got to get real with me. You got to get emotional. You start to move energy. You got to step up and break through whatever bullshit blinder you have on. And the only way we had to do that was I got to the point where I grabbed him and I had to physically make him shake and rattle him and confront him to the point where I made him reach out and slap me, overhand palm slap me, so he can actually release whatever thing he had in his way, whatever feeling he was carrying, whatever block in his mind he was holding on to. And when I got him to get raw and real with me as a man, and we got down and started getting after it, we actually ended up wrestling it for a few seconds at his house on his back porch. He sat up and he started to release so many emotions and thoughts and ideas and feelings that he never even realized he had trapped inside. And we finally were able to get to the truth of why he was allowing that dynamic to beat his ass every single day and bleed his personal bank accounts. And then he realized that's the direction, that's the target we have to focus on. I couldn't have got him to focus on that without him actually getting physical to release whatever ego he was holding on to. So that's the best way I can explain that. Sure. I know it sounds crazy, but I got him to open up. I got him to the real guy that I was waiting to meet. And then I finally sat down and said, now we can execute. Now we can move forward together. So, I mean, I threatened to leave and give him his check back. And I was like, I'm done.
And what did he do? Did he like cut off the mom and stepdad?
Oh, that was a whole process. That took months. I mean, that was fighting his mom and stepdad, the relationship we had to keep. That was a whole thing. It's not as straightforward as like, hey, mom, you don't get to run the business anymore. It was an eruption of the relationships. It was him facing the uncomfortable nature of what is going on, why it was going on, him revamping the entire company, firing the people that were bleeding him dry, hiring people that actually met his mission statement. It was a whole thing. That was a whole relationship. We spent majority of the time together focusing on that. Now he sold this thing for 8 figures. So at the end of the day, it's like that was the thorn in his side, where when we started to get him to be a man and confront that and lead that element, he naturally started to experience better and performance in his other business. His children, he started to discipline differently. They started to listen to him. He found a relationship that actually respected him, and his life started to evolve because he was willing, that leadership, that man stepped up into that position and started to engage the way he was always meant to from the biggest problem that he was overlooking or avoiding. And I think that's the problem with most people is we are avoiding the hard truths about our lives, and we think that has no effect on our ability to live the life we say we want over here or perform the way we want to over here. And until you confront those demons, you're always going to be dragging them alongside you, and they're always going to limit your capacity, your performance potential.
Yeah, it reminds me of that saying, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So once he stopped the leak that was, involving both his family, his relationships with his mom, his business
His life
life.
changed.
Yeah, because then it's like every aspect of his life kind of saw that change and then changed along with it.
We are the epicenter of our lives, right? You realize that everything that we execute upon, like you said, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. If you're slacking in any department, it's going to influence your focus, your determination, your decision-making, your influence. It's like having a celebrity who is dealing with a lot of chaos in their life, and then they're out on stage telling 250 million followers, to do X. Those people are going to be influenced by that and do it exactly as that celebrity does. Well, imagine a celebrity having a better life, being a better person, being a better, relationships, not being so dysfunctional will change the scope of how people are interacting with them, and then consequently change the influence that they have. It's all part of who we are.
Did you ever have someone you were working with where obviously it's like there's layers of an onion. So
sure,
you're finding things out because for them it's either a blind spot or something they're ashamed about that maybe they can fix their lives without confronting this one issue. But did you ever find out something about someone where you're like, whoa, this is too much for me. Good luck. I'm out of here.
No.
Was there ever a time where other people would have done that?
Everybody I've worked with has said to some degree in their life that their therapist couldn't go beyond where they had taken them. Their coaches they worked with just didn't understand and couldn't figure out the problem. And they never had anybody stay by their side to go through that storm with them. So that's just the difference is there's nothing that I won't go through with someone who's committed to it. There are people who have gotten to a point in my work where we've capped out. We've got to a point where they can't go any further, that they've reached their true peak, they're done, and we break and move away. It depends. I mean, clients will last sometimes 6 months, 7 months, 9 months, a year. It all depends on how far they really can be stretched and really pushed to the point where they can't do it anymore. And they're like, I'm done. And that at least I get them to a place where their set point has changed. And now they're at least operating at a different level and they're not living in that dysfunction that I met them with. So it doesn't matter whatever traumas or abuse, but there are I met some public figures, specifically one in my top of my head right now, who couldn't get past the initial interaction with me because of his past traumas as a child. I was the biggest threat to him. He didn't understand, even though he asked to meet me because of his friend, he asked to sit down with me. He couldn't handle the feelings he was having and what he would have to confront and do the work that he'd do to confront it. He was like, I'm good where I'm at. And he just broke away. And that sometimes happens too.
Well, and why was it? Like, what did you guys talk about in that initial meeting?
I didn't talk about anything with him. I made him feel things he didn't want to feel. That's it. I met him. We went to dinner. He's a big public figure. He was like, hey, what are you doing to my client? My client goes, hey, can you sit down with him? And I said, sure, of course. He goes, he's coming to town. I would love you guys to get together. He's seen how my life's changed. He wants to know what I'm doing. This guy spent $2+ million on personal development at the time. He's bragging about it. And I'm like, okay, great. But you're the one in pain. You're the one still dealing with stuff. You asked for this meeting. We're here. We're breaking bread together, having some dinner. And his ego started to wax and wane. And he didn't realize that I was not the threat. What he was feeling, what was coming up, being around me, what I was just exposing in our interaction was everything he was still carrying that was causing that pain that he had verbalized to his client or friend that he said he wanted to fix. And some people just can't get through that. They can't see you are feeling stuff that you're carrying. I'm not the threat. I'm not here to do anything to you. I'm just stimulating stuff that you need to work through. That's just what happens. It's hard to explain that to the average human being. Everybody thinks that if you can't explain it, then it's BS. But the reality is, I'm an experience. I'm not something to be thought. He thought he could think me. He couldn't get through that. And he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's okay. Next person and move on. So.
And is it because you think he was uncomfortable revealing what was really at the heart of this, or?
Yep. He was afraid to face it. He's afraid to confront it. And that's unfortunate, but that's what it is.
It's funny about the self-help industry. Like I once pitched this idea for a TV show, a fictional TV show, but like a comedy called Gurus Gone Wild. And the
nice.
idea is that you have all these they all know each other, right? So they're all friends or frenemies or whatever. And 90% of them are kind of messed up and have really wild stories. But you don't see that. That's like the iceberg below the tip of the iceberg. And and I think a lot of times people don't even really know, like, okay, let's start with the assumption that happiness is always a fleeting feeling. It's when your dopamine's up and then you go back to some baseline of happiness. So like, for instance, me, I'm not always the happiest person. I would say in general, my baseline is probably below other people's baseline. So it's, I have to really push myself just to feel satisfaction with my life. Now, am I speaking a truth about me or am I hiding something? Like, what's your gut?
No, you're being honest. You're being honest. Most people aren't. Happiness is an external thing. It comes from the outside. Joy is different from happiness. Set points, like you said, your baseline is what you call it. I call it a set point. Most people's set point is not where they actually think it is, not where they really want it, which is why they can't handle certain levels of pressure and stress when it comes to the work they do. It's why they get frustrated very easily. And then it's why they bullshit themselves on social media and across like you said, I met a lot of those guys. I met a lot of those people in the personal development space because it was the industry that I worked in for a better part of 4 years before the pandemic. I've seen the truth behind the scenes. A lot of those people at private events and parties is they're not very happy people in their personal lives, but they have an image to uphold. They have an empire that they built on the premise of what they teach and what they share with the world. But the reality is they're at home kind of miserable, burned out inside. They're stressed out constantly. They're always trying to fill some void with something they're doing, which is why they keep coming out with a new product or a new thing, and they repackage their coaching and they just got to sell, scale. And it's because they're trying to hide the emptiness that they're feeling inside. You're like, look, I'm not happy all the time. Either am I. I'm a man. I wake up every day. I'm not at 10 every day. Anybody says that they are is full of crap. The reality is you can change your set point and you can learn to find joy even in suffering, but you're not going to always be happy. And I think we have an industry that tries to sell people on the chasing of happiness rather than learning how to find that set point of joy and satisfaction with where you're at and not worried about where you want to be or need to be, and realize that if you can't appreciate what you have in these moments, how are you supposed to even do that when you attain or achieve this next level? And that's what a lot of these industry gurus who know each other, who stroke each other, who sell to each other, they have built these empires of 9 figures, 10 figures. It's like, yeah, but what has that done for you? A lot of them say, well, I thought I could buy my way out of this problem that I've been dealing with for 30 years. Once I get the money, you can't. If you can't fix your life now, you're not going to be where you truly want to be. And you got to admit the truth is, I'm not happy 24/7. Life is stressful. You wake up every day, you go, gosh, what do I got to do now? People depend on me. I got a family. I got work to do. Sometimes I don't want to even go on podcasts. Sometimes I don't even want to talk to people. But the reality is, where's my set point? I have a set point of knowing what peace feels like. I know how to get to a place of joy, even though if I'm suffering through something. And I want other people to understand you can get that too. That should be the ultimate goal because everything else is irrelevant. Success means nothing if you don't have that as a foundation. And I think I appreciate the fact you were willing to admit that, hey, I'm below the average with this stuff. But I think just talking to you, I can just tell you're content with what you have done and have achieved, and you consistently look to better yourself on a daily basis without going overboard and feeling like your life has to revolve around self-help. I think that's where people get lost too, is they revolve their life around self-help. and they become tunnel vision on it, and they don't realize that they're missing out on opportunities and relationships that could be more beneficial to them. And they're overlooking those blind spots or those demons, as I call them, that are influencing their decisions and keeping them stuck in that paradigm.
And so you're spending so much time with these clients. How does it affect your own personal life? Like, do you, date, or like what?
I'm
what
married.
Are you?
Yes,
You're
I'm
married. So like when you're traveling
Yeah.
with, someone for 8 months or whatever, what happens in your relationship?
Well, the beautiful thing is I have a business partner. She is amazing. And my wife, they know each other. So we have this, we were a good relationship. But the truth is, when I got out of the military, I did the very thing that I'm telling people they need to do. Is I was able to confront, through the support of an outside force, someone outside of me, holding me in the trenches to face my own demons, battle them head on, create some resolution in my life where my set point of peace becomes my go-to place where no matter what I'm faced with, I know how to get back there. So my life, my primary focus when I wake up in the morning is self-care. I take care of myself. I exercise. I eat well. I really don't drink outside of a little scotch every once in a while. I don't drink coffee. I take care of my body. I focus on my relationship because my relationship with my wife is the most important thing to me. So having that as a baseline or a foundation then allows me to function at a higher level when I'm giving my life to a client. Now, when I travel with a client, I'm not gone for 8 months. It just means my life becomes available to that individual, and my wife understands it. And my business partner, her and I work that dynamic together as it's needed. So sometimes people need me a lot more than the others will need me. It depends on where they're at. And the reality is I get to be home. I get to be here, but they have access to me. That's the commitment. It's like when they call, I pick up my phone. When they need me to get on a plane, I get on a plane. If I'm going to go spend 5 days with them, I go spend 5 days with them. I got to travel to an event, I go travel to an event. Wherever they need me, I'm there. If a client's burned out and he can't get to sleep, I'm literally on the phone all night with them, literally listening to them go to sleep so they can feel like they've got a battle buddy right there. I'm doing whatever I need to do for that individual based on where they're at, but my life never gets affected because my life is my priority is my relationships, my health, and my sanity, and my place of peace. And if I keep that as my focus and my discipline, everything I'm able to do is exponential. And that's the key.
Do you have more than one client at a time? Because what happens if I see? So nobody can ever interfere with another client.
I'll back up that a little. I will only work with maybe 2, 3 max a year, and that it all depends on when the relationship is forged, and it doesn't really overlap too much. If I worked with the client where I've had another client come on board, but by the time that happens, I'm kind of already through the first few months of the uneffing, if you will, where we go through a lot of the real battle stuff and we can get to a good place of acceleration. Now, the other person I've met, I have the space and capacity to kind of have that dynamic with them. So it just almost like naturally leapfrogs itself where I'm not overwhelming myself. But I have had a couple of years in the past where I've done some consulting simultaneously while working with, a very specific private client that still I have time and energy to do it because that client doesn't need me at certain times of the day or night. I can give my attention to that other project that I'm working on. So I find the balance in that and the harmony in it.
And what if it dried up? Like, what if suddenly, like you say, a lot of it's word of mouth and you don't really publicize your services. What if it dried up and suddenly there's no clients, and maybe it's for a short period of time and you have a feeling it's for a short period of time, but you don't really know. Maybe you think to yourself, this dry spell could last forever.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm
doing okay for myself. I guess I can look at it that way. I thank God for that. I'm like, you know what? I'm all right. I'm in a good place. My clients invest, a very high level, high amounts of money to work with me. So, but I take upwards of 30% sometimes of that money they invest and invest it back in them. So my bottom line is never what they actually pay me. And I don't do this work for a bottom line. But at the end of the day, I've got a really bad business model because, I've said no to people who are ready to write checks that are just they're not going to be a good fit. They're just not going to be someone I can actually jive with. And they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to follow what it is I'm sharing with them, what I need them to do. So I've missed out on
what's that kind of person like? Like what do you sense about that person? Like what happens?
It's their ego. They can't separate their ego and surrender their leadership. They can't truly let go and see themselves as, quote, being a client of mine. They can't go, you know what? I've worked with a lot of guys that are older than me. I'm in my mid 40s and these guys in their mid 50s. And they're like, they just can't set that ego aside. Some of them are like, I want to do this for the brag. I had a guy literally tell me, he goes, I just want to do it so I can say that I did it with you because I heard you were the guy that challenges people. I want to see if I can meet your challenge. And it's like, I don't work with people simply because you want to do it for some, bragging rights. I don't care about the zeros behind your number. At the end of the day, it's like my work is truly a mission. I'm not a coach. I'm not somebody who's designed to be a liked person. I don't have followers. I'm not big on social media. I'm kind of like the guy that's behind the scenes that, again, the glorified janitor that fixes lives. And I challenge people in a way that they're not used to that. And so it takes a special kind of person to go, let me separate my ego. Let me feel into Wiley and realize I need a guy like that in my corner. Somebody who's not a yes man. See, there are a lot of yes men out there. So a lot of these leaders want to hire the yes men that they can control. A lot of these people like controlling their resources because it gives them a semblance of understanding what's going to happen. They don't get that with me. They don't get to control what they're going to get. So I've gone through since the pandemic, James. It's been hard since the pandemic because I think the pandemic broke a lot of people. I think there are a lot of people out there. They are afraid.
I think that's true.
And I've done a lot of work to invest in the digital space and a website. And it's like I was always behind the scenes and didn't need any of that junk, but I was forced into a position where I put myself out into the public. And I've been feeling a little bit more of that, like you said. A lot of the drying up is happening because there are a lot. It takes a very specific type of person who go, well, I want to meet Wiley and connect with him. I want to know the uniqueness of it. I may not know what I'm going to get with him, but I can feel something's different, and I'm willing to embrace and jump into that unknown. And that was special when I was a nobody, and now I'm kind of out here going, hey, still doing this work. But I think the pandemic broke a lot of people, and a lot of people are afraid to do this. And they like the feel-good stuff, the superficial. They like the notoriety. They want to go after the things with celebrity names attached to them. They don't want to commit to the hard stuff that really makes them very uncomfortable. And I think that's the problem I'm facing right now. So, but I'm open to whatever happens. I'm here. 1 year I had 3 clients. 1 year I had 1. So whatever I'm supposed to do, I'm just here ready for it, and I'll execute upon it as it's needed.
Well, it sounds really interesting, and it sounds really like a different take. I wish I could get an experience of the, what challenges. I feel like I need shaking up, but it's hard to know from inside yourself what specific thing you need, what is causing you the frustrations you feel. Like for me, I'm able to write, right? So I write kind of very reflective sort of books, and I find that to be somehow unlock things, because then you sort of find a story, and like an archaeologist, you do tiny little digging to see what the layers are underneath. And that's like what I would say good writing is. And sometimes it helps a little, but it's not, but I'm directing it. Like no one's kind of hitting me from the outside. So,
it's like Newton's law of physics, right? An object that's in motion will stay in motion until an outside force is acted upon it. People need an outside force to redirect them. Somebody that can clash with them in real time and expose through that confrontation. And I don't mean like, you don't have to actually get into a physical fight, but actually just like a confrontation dynamic where no stones left unturned. I'm going to say things to you that you are probably looking at me like, what did you just say to me? Why did you just say that to me? And what does it mean? But it's on purpose to expose something you can't see, but I can, based on how I'm feeling into and observing your life and your relationships and the dynamics you're engaged in. And of course, I have an amazing business partner. Her specialty, her intuitiveness, her ability, she's like my Reaper drone that's in the sky, and I'm the troop on the ground, and she's able to navigate and go, Wiley, we need to go here with that person first. Even though that client might go, I really want to make $2 million more this month. And I really want to, it's like, yeah, that's great. That's a good byproduct. Or I'm going to write another book. Cool. But we got to go here first, because this thing over here is actually what's really affecting you, and you're unaware of it. And we have to attack that first, and we have to clear that out. Then the things that you want to create will naturally just evolve efficiently for you. I don't need to teach a billionaire how to make $1 billion. A lot of guys are like, I want to work with these high level people because it's like, well, they don't need to learn how to do that. They already know how to achieve. What I'm here to do is optimize the human being, make that person experience this really powerful new set point of who they are so they can thrive in their relationships. Their health is where they want it to be. Their mindset's clear. Their focus is better. Their ability to problem solve in chaos becomes more efficient. then everything they go do will just be more exponentially sustainable and more impactful. That's the difference. And I think what it comes down to is, like you said, I really want that too. It's like, great. A lot of people will say that, but the reality is, can you continue on the dynamic with Wiley? Can you go, you know what, let's stay engaged. I want to learn more. I want to connect with you. Let's talk more, and be willing to embrace that it's going to be unlike anything you've ever gone through. And it's not going to be like therapy. It's not going to be like coaching. And it's going to sound harsh. It's going to sound unconventional and unorthodox, but there's a reason behind it. There's a purpose of what we're trying to expose. And a lot of people can't handle that. They just can't hear it. They want things to sound a certain way and feel a certain way and look a certain way so they can feel comfortable making a decision to work with somebody. I'm just not that cup of tea for people. So that's the difference. It is a hard business model, man. It's really hard to be who I am and what I do, but I'm blessed. I got to say that some people wanted to do it, and I got to do my work for 14 years. But at this point, it's been hard because a lot of people are kind of shying away from leaning into what it is I'm offering because they can't understand it. And I can't explain it in any more detail than that.
Well, how can people find you? Like, where do people, you mentioned you had a website. Where do people look?
Yeah, WylieMcGraw.com. WYLIE. Yep.
McGraw, McGraw.
AW.com. Yep.
And there's like an email and everything. And you have a book coming out. Where was my vacation?
That's a memoir. We've kind of been, I've been trickling around with that because it's for me to sit down and write a book has been a daunting task because I have a very ADD mind and I'm very creative and like to be out doing more physical things. But it's nice to have people that are supporting that. So we'll see where it comes. I have another one that want me to write too. The Dark Force of High Achievement, Why Success is Killing You and How to Save Yourself. That's another one that we've been putting together too.
I think probably I need to read that one. So,
hey, brother, look, I'm going to throw it out there. I'm always happy to stay open and dialogue with you, and have conversations with you too.
No, that's excellent. I might take you up on that. So,
Good.
Well, Wiley, thanks so much for coming on the show and also talking military history with me too. I always get great pleasure in that, as our friend Jeremy could tell you. But thanks so much, and let's keep in touch. I really appreciate it.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me on too, James. Thank you.
Thanks.
With the Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card, you can earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases you want and purchases you need. That means you earn on what you want, like trying out that new workout class, and 2% cash rewards on what you need, like a foam roller for your sore muscles. That's the beauty of the Active Cash Credit Card. It's ready when you are, with unlimited 2% cash rewards. The Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card. That's real life ready. Terms apply. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/activecash.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.